Hi, boys and girls. It's time to look at our math solutions for our DMA today. I'm glad you're coming back and looking at your solutions. These are very important skills that are going to help us continue to improve our math skills as we go through third grade. So let's take a look at our first problem. We are on DMA week 10, day 3. So we're going to look at our first problem, and it is involving a pictograph. And a pictograph, if you remember, involves a picture. So this picture is showing or representing for every car, it is equal to 6 cars. And multiplication works in very nicely with pictographs, especially because each one of these cars is representing 6 for each. So if I look at the title, it says cars parked on Avenue D. On Monday, there were 6. This represents 6, and this car represents 6. So I have 2 groups of 6, and that gives me 12 cars that were parked. On Tuesday, I have the same number of cars that were parked on Tuesday, so it's 6 for this group, for that car, and 6 for that car, which is 2 groups of 6 again, which tells me I have 12 cars parked on Tuesday. Now, for this particular part of our bar graph, we have 1, 2, 3 groups of 6. However, this is half of a car. And so since this is only half of a car, it's not representing all 6 cars, but it's going to be representing 3. So we could write this as 3 groups of 6, and then we can add the 3 from that half of a car. We can add that in. So if I have 18 plus 3 more would be 19, 20, 21. So this is 21 cars on Wednesday. So now we can look at our question, and the question is asking us, how many more cars were parked on Wednesday than on Tuesday? So we're looking at Wednesday's amount, which was 21, and 21 is more than, because it says how many more. We're comparing the amount that was parked on Wednesday compared to the amount that was parked on Tuesday. So we are subtracting because we want to know how many more Wednesday had than Tuesday had. So this is a subtraction problem. So when we take our problem, we want to write an equation to match and show our work. So 21 cars parked on Wednesday. That is more than the cars that were parked on Tuesday. So we want to know how many more. So if I subtract 10 from 21, that would give me 11. And then take away 2 more from the 11 mentally in my head, I would count back 1 more, which would be 10, and 1 more before that would be 9. And how can I check my work? Well, if I take 12 and add 9, 9 plus 2 is 11, and add 10 more, that's 21. So there were 9 more cars parked on Wednesday than on Tuesday. Our next problem is adding or subtracting mentally. So we're adding 100 more to my hundreds place. So since I have 6 hundreds here, if I add 1 more 100 onto my 600, that would be 700. We're not adding any 10s or 1s, so those remain 50 and 1. When I'm subtracting 10, and 90 is in my tens place. I want to take 110 from the 90. So my hundreds place is not going to be affected because I'm not subtracting any hundreds. I'm subtracting 110 from that 90. So that gives me 80. And from the 5, I am not subtracting any 1s, so that would be 85. When I'm rounding each number to its nearest 10 here on my next problem, I am going to round first, then I'm going to add. So make sure you round first, then add. We're rounding to the closest 10. I look at my tens place in both numbers. 615 is in between the two tens of 610, and it's in between 620. Now, remember, if you need to use your multiples of 10 chart, which we used in the beginning part of this year, you can see that if we were to look for 615, it would be in between these two groups of 10. So this is always a tool that you can go back to if you are still having to think about what groups of 10s your numbers are falling between. So you can always go back and take a look at that. We know that in between every group of 10, halfway between is going to be 15, because 5 is right in the middle of every group of 10. So 615, well, that happens to be the number that we're rounding. So the rule is, since this is 5 away from 610, but it's also 5 away from 620, they had to come up with a rule as to where is that going to be rounded to. So since it's right in the middle, the rule is we round up to the higher 10. So this is going to, 615 is going to round to 620. 348 is between 340, and it's also going to be between 350. So 340, I see a 40 here in my tens place. My next 10 is 50. So if I round 348, I know that it's going to be past 345. Maybe a little bit closer, maybe more along that area. 348 is 2 away from 350, but it's 8 away from 340. So we know it's going to be closer to 350. And so now that I know that I can round this, we can now add our two rounded amounts, and we have 600 plus 300 is going to give me 900, and 20 and 50 is going to give me 70. Now, if I were going to decide and look at the exact sum to see if this is a nice rounded amount that's close to my estimate, I could take 615 and add the 348 to it. So 600 plus 300 is 900. 10 and 40 is 50. And 8 and 5 is going to be 13. And how do I know that? Because if I take 2 from this 5 to make 8 into a 10, that would leave me with 3 more. So this is going to be 13. And I add the 900 plus the 50 is 950. Add 950 plus 10 is 960. And 3 more makes 963. So, is this a close amount? Yes. Also realize that 963, if we were going to round this, it actually would round to 960. So be sure when you are going to estimate, always round the addends or the numbers that are in the equation first before you calculate. So we are going to say 970 is our estimate for our rounded amounts. Now we're going to take a look at our subtraction problem. We have 417, that's our total. We have 78, which is part of this total. It's inside of the 417. We are looking for my difference, or the missing part that's left, or the part that's remaining after I subtract the 78. So this is my missing part. So if I were to draw, sometimes they call these tape diagrams, or they also sometimes call them a bar diagram. If my whole is 417, the entire amount is being represented by this bar. If I take 78 from that 417, my missing part is what's left over from the 417. So to calculate this, I could take my 417 and subtract 70, and this isn't something that's easy to do mentally. However, I know that I have 10 here, so I can subtract that fairly easily. If I subtract 10 from 417, I'm going to get 407. Now, I need to subtract the 60, and when I subtract 60, I'm going to have 347. And how do I know that it's going to be 347? It's because 60 and 40 would make my new 100 of 400. Now I can take this 347 and subtract 8 from the 78. Now, again, I can see that I have 7 here, so I can subtract these 7 easily, and then one more after that. So if I subtract these 7, I would have 340, and then subtract one more from 340, count back from 340 would be 339. So my missing part is 339. Now I'm going to take and use an algorithm to do the same thing. So I'm going to subtract 417 minus 78. I cannot subtract 8 from 7. So that tells me I need to regroup or borrow a 10 so that I can have enough to subtract. That is 17. 9 plus 8 is 17. Well, if I didn't know that, I could think about my double of 8 plus 8. 8 plus 8 is 16, so one more would be 9 plus 8, and that would give me 17. Now I can go to my tens place, but I still can't subtract. And how do I know that I can't subtract? Because 0 minus 7 is not going to be 7. And how do I know? Because 7 plus 7 is not 0. 7 plus 7 is 14. So this tells me that if I were going to use my understanding of checking my answer by adding, this tells me I am not able to do that. So that tells me I need to borrow 100 and regroup that as 10 tens. 10 tens is 100. So 100 minus 70 is going to leave me with 30. And I have no hundreds to subtract from this 300, so that leaves me with 339. So again, if I go back to my tape diagram, I can fill in my missing part. Now, I can always check my subtraction by using addition. So 9 and 8 makes 17, which is where I was here and here. I regroup the 10 to the tens place. 70 plus 30 is 100, and one more 10 is 110. So I can leave that 10 here in the tens place, but I regroup the 100 into my hundreds place for my 110. So that's here in my tens place. So 300 plus 100 is 400. That tells me my total that I started with here at the beginning of my equation. You're also going to go back to the first problem, and in our discussion, after you watch this video, you are going to answer the question of how many cars were parked on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. This is going to be an extension question as an exit ticket for today's video lesson. So go into Schoology under your Wednesday folder in math, and where it says exit ticket discussion for DMA, you are going to answer the question, just as I said, how many cars were parked on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday? Please make sure to have an equation to show and give proof to your work, and make sure that you also have your solution ready too. So, can't wait to see what we get in our discussion for today on our exit ticket. Have a great afternoon, guys. Happy Wednesday.